So when my husband Ryan and I first met, we talked pretty openly about how we wanted to communicate as a couple. I know, weird dating conversations, but I was a single mom, so we had to just like cut right to it. And he said something amazing to me that actually set a foundation for all of our marriage. It actually transformed our marriage in amazing ways over the years. And I want to share this thing with you. Ryan said to me in the earliest conversations, he said to me, he said, Angie, I will do anything for you, anything at all that you ask. You just have to ask. You see, what Ryan didn't want to do was to have to like read my mind and figure out what I wanted. He said, I'll do whatever it is. You just have to ask. And I'll tell you what, he has been true to his promise. 20 years later, if I sit there and say, will you give me a cup of coffee? He will stop whatever he is doing and get up and go get me a cup of coffee. It's kind of amazing. I know. You're first thinking about it, like you think, all right, if I had someone like that, what would I do? I'd ask him to like take me to Florida every spring break, or I'd ask him to buy me this or to do that. But here's the thing. I know he'll do it. I know if I said, Ryan, I'd like to go to Florida every spring break, he would go and get a second job so that we could afford to go do that. I know that he'll do whatever I asked him to do. It's a little bit of a superpower, but it's his superpower. I'll tell you how this works. When I was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, Skylar, our youngest daughter, I had this massive craving for cereal at like 9 p.m., like inconveniently late at night. Now, Ryan, he had worked so hard at work all day, and then he came home and he finished painting the baby's room. So he was dog tired. He was beyond exhausted. And as we're laying in bed and he is all the way asleep, I'm sitting there thinking, I need to eat some cereal. I have this craving for cereal, and it wouldn't really go away, and I couldn't shake it. And so I knew that if I had asked Ryan to go to the grocery store right in that moment, he'd have gotten up out of bed, put his clothes and his shoes back on, driven to the store, gotten me what I wanted, come back, poured me a bowl, and all of this. I know that he would have done that. But the thing is, I love my husband. And I know how hard he worked. And so I sat there and I debated if I wanted to move or not. And then I decided, all right, I was going to go get my own cereal. So I got up. And as soon as I got up, he said, well, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to go get cereal. I have a craving. And then he asked me, he said, would you like me to go get it for you? And there I was left with the tough decision to see if I was going to go get it or not get it. And I think this is a long way to say, I think this is what Paul is talking about in chapter 7. He's asked the question, what it is to give without question to another person. Now, the earthly church in Corinth, there's a city fraught with sexual immorality, fraught with promiscuity. If you remember from our very first lesson, the city of Corinth actually has this big temple to the goddess Aphrodite, where we get the word aphrodisiac from. So this whole city is rampant in sexual promiscuity. It's rampant in temple prostitutes that go and they tempt men through all the streets. And so here is the early church centered right in the middle, and they are trying to figure out where the boundaries are for that little church. And they want to sit there and figure it out. And so they start to double down. And they say, all right, well, if we're going to be the church and we're going to be different, we're going to not have any sexual relations, because that just causes too much problems between people. And as you start to read this first part of chapter 7, you start to get a glimpse of Paul. Paul is really sitting there, and Paul thinks truly deep down to his core that Jesus was coming back in his lifetime. So as you're reading this, you really get a glimpse into the character of Paul. Now, Paul truly believes with his whole being that Jesus is coming back in his lifetime. So it is easy for Paul to sit there and say, you know what, I commit to not having sex at all because it makes sense to me, because he thinks that the second coming is just around the corner. But yet, in all the marriages I've seen most of them, they have one person who gives, and a lot of times the other person takes. But the best marriages are the ones where both people are giving to the best interest of each other, the best health of each other. They're laying aside their own needs for the needs of their partner. And this is what Paul says. He says, the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. You see, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but she yields it to his husband. But in the same way, the exact same way, the husband doesn't have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. So yielding to each other. And so that night when I was 8 months pregnant with Skylar, I got up and I went and got cereal and I brought it up and we both ate cereal in bed that night. But here's my question for you. Number one, in what relationships in your life are you the giver? Are you the person that gives to another? And then another question, just to really think about, in what relationships in your life are you the taker? Are you the one who receives? Think about it and maybe consider giving. We'll see you tomorrow.